Hello everyone. Today's talk is titled Freedom of the Journeyer. And so I will be speaking about how when one explores reality, they are journeying through many aspects of self-consideration. The journeyer is a being who looks at life and notices that there's something more than something. Objects are present, but so is the awareness to them, and that has a transcendent hue. The freedom of the journeyer can be very playfully said to be that moment in your existence when you become aware of life and you're wondering where your life force is going, as if there was an intention of your birth, and it's as if like you've been made in a certain way. Now, with this certain way of being, with your certain view of design and who you are, what is the purpose of this? And where is the certainty of mankind going? It seems that on some level the certainty of mankind is hitting a cultural wall where individuality needs to fade and our culture needs to be allowed to be recreated, and for new renaissances happen in regards to a collective presence in the individual. So individuals will become so integrative. So it's as if the path to peace was not that we just signed a declaration. It was that the state of consciousness of each individual rises to a point where their creativity and their expression is so open that they are seeing that freedom can be built in an instant. Not that we would know that we are peaceful beings, but we will immediately be the expression of our peace. So the state of consciousness is more important than what you think your story is and your character, and the character you think you are in the story of life. The journeyer is one who continues. And so where are we journeying from? Let us say we're journeying from reality to reality. Your sense of knowing now is different than how it was, let's say, when you were 5 years old. So your awareness to reality is becoming very clear. You're becoming present in the way that you are, not in the way you want to be. Because ideology is not measuring anything. When you work with the unmeasured, you're working with the sincerity, trust, and devotion you have, and that on its own is an intelligence that will give you profound levels of insight. It's very funny, you think people who are very academic and knowledgeable, it is only in society that they are really glorified. But beyond that glorification, academia without life experience will feel like having a bow and an arrow but not knowing how to shoot. And so you will feel you have something but you really don't have anything, because it's an experiential level. It is a shift in your consciousness. It has nothing to do with your ideas, rather the awareness to your ideas, which is amplifying your intensity of experience. Once you realize it's about quality of experience, not the quantity of experience, not the how many times you pray, but how many times in each moment of prayer you're completely surrendering your devotion to your vision of a God. And so, of course, this is the relationship of human beings with their vision. And so everything can be said in a relationship with human beings to be vision. And it's as if some aspects of these visions have been contributed, and collectively we have something to talk about. But we cannot avoid that which is within us. And what that means is that when we look at life, it is up to us to choose how much we want to see the reality of things. For I think most of my life until 2011, I did not see life. I wasn't living in life. I was living in my idea of life, which I was so certain of, and that's why I knew it was my idea, because I had full control of it, I thought. I was being the boss of my world, and guess what? The boss of my world was its own construction of an illusion. It was a lack of mindfulness to where existence is. And where existence is, there is no judgment. So judgment is that which is being constructed with a lack of attention to how you are paying attention to things. Clarity is simple because clarity is the silence when noise was the confusion. There is an aspect of man's mind, Mr. Within finds, that is infinite. And so what that means is when man begins to even look at multidimensionality, he sees that it cannot be, because we are one part of the spectrum. So multidimensionality would mean simultaneous presence. So how much of a simultaneous experience are you having now? Well, you see, if you ask the Western man, he would perhaps say, I don't know, sometimes when I close my eyes before I sleep, I feel, something, But if you went and asked that yogi, a mystic in the Himalayas, in the cave, he would say, it's unspeakably here. Yes. So what that means is, it's as if as consciousness, the freedom of the individual in solitude is infinite. What that means is Tom Hanks' mind, or his character in Castaway, really made that volleyball into a friend. And so what that means is is because he is in such a framework of constantly keeping his survival up, he is forgetting that which is here that is already being maintained. Because for me, when the question of death came in, I saw there's no other problems to solve, and I was ignorant of the concept of death. I was being rude to death, do you believe it? And what that means is I was not looking at the concept properly. It's as if when I saw it in movies, I was like, okay, I know there is death. All right, oh, look at that action movie, But I was not confronting the actuality of the experience. But when I did, when there came a moment where I just closed that book and just sat down on my bed to visualize the end of ends, I saw that it dissolves into awareness immediately. And what that means is the end of that which is continuing individually. And it does not mean your individuality is not there. It's just that moment where you're looking at the mirror and you think you're just seeing yourself, there is a world behind you. Do you know? There's everything else behind you, your room and whatnot, wherever the mirror is. So clarity goes to the roots of such observance of human experience, that you begin to see your sense of journey was also a sense of journey into an exploration of your greater experience. Some of the greatest journeys are those that are within. It's as if you're pulling a string that nobody else can see, and you're just wondering where that stream of thought goes, and as you follow it, you realize it is of a different sense of intelligence. So, if I was to say between, let's say, the CEO who's got perhaps the perfect life and is, doing his thing, and the Mother Teresa and Swami and Gandhi type figures, the yogi type figures too, I would say if I saw these two types of beings who are living in such ways, I would think, as an omniscient view, that the one who has devotion, who is aware of his reality, who is not just looking for objects, but is being aware of that which is experiencing the objective, you begin to see love as a sign of a healthy being. A lack of love is a sign of a being who's not looking at himself enough. And when I say looking at himself, I mean it's self-observance. It's you going in nature, going on a walk in a park, taking a notebook or something with you, and just walking, and just in your wonder, writing your most self-reflective notes on what your next steps can be. We only feel blind when we feel we're hiding from something, or we're not being allowed to see. But the sight of man has a transcendental nature to it. And so when the human being, after being conditioned to noise and having names and language and terminology and such a world of communication, if he begins to acknowledge silence, he begins to realize there's a sense of unknown in the concept of a self. That the moment perhaps that kid who we see in many schools are being bullied, if they all just for a second notice and they're like, who is being bullied and what is being, and realize that objective awareness must always have subjective awareness there, so you must constantly be aware of what is present in your moment of existence. That includes the ideology, that includes your breath, that includes the sounds in the distance, that includes the silence that is here. You must really see what is the most crucial area of your life you want to pay attention to and develop. So what that means is right now man is working with just, let's say, a beam of attention. You have a spotlight of attention. Let's say you can focus on one thing and do it well. So what would you focus on? And that act would be suggested by Mr. Within to be one of you focusing on existentially what you are, because we are being found in a culture and society where the consciousness of the being is shifting also with the influence of his creations from the past and what is advancing technologically to the future. We must become aware of it. You know, the students usually should, because the students, you know, they've lived enough to act. You know, after you've graduated, it's time for you to go do something. If you really don't have a business idea, I suggest you going to charity work and volunteer work, and in doing that, becoming aware of what is the most crucial thing to do. Because transparency is the mystic's guide. He recognizes that his devotion is one where he is surrendering all ideology to bask into the greater collective knowing. It is existential intelligence, of course, and so you must be aware of how you are experiencing it. Because my words are just words. And it is really important to see that you must climb this mountain, and you must climb it properly with the knowledge and the certainty and with the naturalness of your own feet. And that is very crucial for the journeyer to know, because I see a lot of these people, and when they go to these gurus in other countries, you know, they're just very like sitting down, and they're so devotional to the human being. You know, they're like, oh, this guru's presence is so majestic, you know, and they're there. That's very nice. That's very sweet. But it's very important for the journeyer to know that he is not here to bask in some sweetness of a temporal projection that is suggesting eternity. You are here to go into your directest experience. And so the greatest guru will shake you. The greatest gurus are not here to be your friends. They are here to dissolve your ideology, to bring you existential self-awareness, which is very profundity where your awareness originates from. And so how can this study be done? And is the journeyer free in the society? How can the freedom of consciousness and multidimensionality be allowed in the experience of man when there is not new information, there is not a new renaissance? The only problem I see is that we are not having more newer ideas coming into action. And so what that means is the most important thing that perhaps the human being can do is to, instead of picking up trash, let's say, or picking up a bottle and thinking you've saved the world, begin stopping, taking your life very seriously, valuing and respecting and seeing the divinity within your being, seeing that you are originating your experience, and really in a very deep self-contemplative manner through silence and stillness and a very compassionate view, see where you need to head. What that means is you must not cheat yourself in this life. Honesty and sincerity and authenticity and naturalness and your own existential allowance are views that you must give yourself. You must find it within you. You must see that how much do you want to hear the noise of others and not just be ruled by dictators, but be ruled by dictation. It is up to you to communicate the intensity of what you want to see. And so let me say it like this, because let us say there were a bunch of kids, and all these kids suddenly run to this, let's say, ice cream booth to get free ice cream. And you begin to see all these kids who run there, they all say, give it, give it, give it, and the guy doesn't give anything. And so suddenly, one by one, they all leave. And as all these kids, one by one, leave, suddenly there's one kid left there who's constantly standing there and looking at this ice cream guy's, he's looking into the ice cream guy's eyes as if, like, you better give this to me because I'm not moving, And so you begin to see that the ice cream man sees that, oh, this kid has guts, and probably gives him ice cream, gives this 9-year-old kid ice cream, The journeyer, if he sees and considers himself to be an external object of experience, if you think you're just this body, you will begin to see that there is a lack of allowance to a natural sense of wanting to know within you. So as if a part of you is accepting something, but another part of you is like, what if it's not true? And so perhaps sincerity comes into play, because without sincerity, the journeyer cannot be free. Because the journeyer must know when to move on and when to stay. The journeyer must follow, as they say very, very poetically, the heart. But the heart is not just the rhythm that's been beating since your birth. Your heart is that sense of awareness that the moment you become observant of thought, all that you can be is the devotion that is keeping and bringing manifestation in your present moment of experience. And that devotion is your omniscience to be all that you are as you are, and the knowing that the untouchable is an aspect of your experience, which only you could receive. You are your own greatest treasure revealer, and these treasures are not physical treasures. They're deeper aspects of how you view life, and you begin to see as you go through deep self-contemplation, as you work with meditation, you begin to see that you are allowing yourself to observe yourself. And in that self, it's as if there's a moment where the self becomes rooted in the self, so you begin to become aware that you are this ideology. But as you're aware of this ideology, constantly the depth of the observance is existence. So there have been some moments where someone has said something to me, and I've really tried to say something back to them. And as I have, I've seen that not that I just couldn't say anything back to them, that I was hit with an existential silence. An existential silence that was, it's as if the world around me was saying, why? Why did you have that urge to act in this way? And in that moment of self-reflection, I noticed that it is my ignorance of my life that I am not in the present moment. The past and the future, as if something you're keeping as an idea, is a luxury that human consciousness cannot have right now. You can't segment your time, play with it, and act depressed, and then forget who the actor is. It is time for human consciousness to be very clear of its existential presence and that which it is allowing. Ideology has been our toy, and so the human species is now growing up. It is growing up in recognizing that consciousness permeates through all that is, that absolute reality is the origination of the awareness that was the whole observance of all dualistic spectrums that suggest you are in a place when the space around you is placeless. We want to enhance the ability of the human being. The journeyer is an advanced communicator because he is trusting his intuition and working with flows of knowing, you know? You must very, very much so keep yourself in a present awareness, and this present awareness is not something that you are seeking, in a sense, like it is not something that you're trying to get a result. It's not result oriented, it's awareness oriented. It's that moment you see that this being has been surviving for a reason, and this self-awareness that is found in what is a conscious view is the future self presently known and always introduced in every step. And what that means is that in your trust of your journey, your freedom will turn into your devotion to surrender your ignorance, to bring clarity to your life experience, to your vision. Because I see that there are different gifts you can give to people. And the idea of Mr. Within's gift is perhaps that the gift that Mr. Within wants to give you is not a present, it is not a diamond, a 9 million diamond chain, in which a rapper has bought for his son. This gift is one where one human being is standing beside you, and Mr. Within is saying, your experience is the value of your life, not the individual stuff that is in your experience. Thought still on some subtle level is stuff, and we are more than stuff. Carl Sagan said we are made of star stuff. I believe we are that which is keeping star stuff here. Our experience has many potentials of passage, and so simultaneous realities means that we're constantly spiraling into many points of self-conception, and as these meet, there is growth. It's as if when I slide my hands together, there is friction, there is heat, there is a build-up based on a repetition of an act that is naturally being taken place. Do not try to seek medicine in the sense of like, oh, I need this drug, I should have this drug, oh, this is what I need, this is what I need. Because that is mainly you trying to handle this very natural physical system, you know, with ideology of your own conception, and also that which is, how would I say it? We sometimes might accept things before really seeing the other options. And so it's very important to see that if you feel in that position, it is very important for you to just pay attention that that is one reality, and the most crucial thing, which is the building ground for the mystic, is to begin in one moment of emptiness, clarity, and then establish the significance of your life. In giving yourself an allowance to be a clear view. For the clarity within is always the free essence of this plane of existence within the journeyer, who's simply a dynamic element, let's say, an active element in it. That monk sitting beside the stream may feel that the Tibetan beads in his hands are turning into planets, because conceptually he has observed the emptiness of ignorance, of how pain and suffering is first there, kept without conscious view, but once you are conscious, it cannot be kept. Because your vision is your maintenance. And so you must see that the ambitions of a blind man were always to see, and that means all beings can always look within. And that simply means, regardless of if you even know language or not, just be alive, be aware, and in your ability to just very sincerely let go of all ideology, be present, look around you, and flow in this life. For it is now an important time. Many renaissances should happen. Many people should begin communicating and establishing their life's work, projects that they're constantly contributing to the efficiency of the systems they're a part of. And one must never forget, especially in this time, that devotion must be the priority. That when I say your life's work, you are in complete, absolute compassion and love to serve all life, seeking to see what needs to be done and the work that you're here to do. For your work works with you. Life knows what needs to be done, and your awareness to your present moment is always your guiding flow. You know where to go. For any journeyer, especially seeker on the spiritual path, I want to just give a simple suggestion. Let's say this is Mr. Within's suggestion, that find mantras and certain symbols that have very much value to you, and constantly observe them more deeply and more deeply. In other words, look at what love means to you more deeply. Look at what life means to you more deeply. Look at all those very deep relationships you have. Look at your God deeply. Look at your lack of God deeply. And so in your awareness of your sincerity and the clarity that is within you, then if you make a decision, if you don't want to do this, then it's fine. Because then we, as the human collective, will know that you're mindful. man needs to work with what it has, you know. Science fiction is cool, but technology is at a point where consciousness technologies I find are more valuable. And consciousness technologies are simply suggestions of the cosmic intelligence that permeates within everything, within us. And so that is one of your trust taking you to the absolute. I would like to share some mantras with you and hope that these mantras will guide you, because in communicating them you will get great moments of realization to find your greater devotion. You will begin having a glow in your eyes where you will look at what the concept of samadhi means, and you will wonder that if life was about happiness, and you'd see no, life was about the most greatest peak of experiential passage. This is for the pilots of consciousness. Man must realize in any journey that we are at a point of existential intelligence and awareness where man, in his most greatest action and trust and devotion to the whole of life, will begin to see, will be becoming the experience of his collective. Your collective consciousness is the reception of the totality of your life experience. So you must become aware that the novelty is the implication that all is seen to be let go of. Do not be trapped in any interpretation, whether it's yours or other. Realize that there's a sense of transcendence, for there's a sense of change, and as there are many cycles present, there's an infinite movement going on. There's an infinite dance. All existence is moving towards that which is the central sun. And the central sun may poetically be said it is the core of the origination of this sector of conception in which manifestation is trusted to the individual to be born out of. It is now time for the human species to begin to see that knowledge is the connector of all men. Truth is the connector of all men. Freedom of being and to exist is the right and connector of all men, all beings. It is now time for the human form to take an existential responsibility into the void of its origin, to recognize that the experiencer was beyond the object of experience. So your thoughts and depression and stress are all objects of experience. The experiencer is beyond. Your sense of presence is here in a profundity that does not need ideology to give it a mass. It does not need terminology and language to give it a mass. You're peaceful, sincere, and you allow there to be no definitions. Because you are so infinitely changing and existentially allowed to perceive through the novelty of your experience that you cannot be just what you see. You are the collection of your whole observance of your moment. More than you think your problems are coming from you can't trust anyone outside. You can't trust yourself that they will trust you. And it's time for you to take that risk. If you're a billionaire, your greatest investment is to trust that moment where you're giving it all away. Because great men are ones that realize that the value here is the quality of human experience. And we want to increase that in the world. And as it is being increased, human beings will begin having so much more advanced communication that this advanced communication will begin giving them a greater recognition of transcendence. So what that means is right before the human form needs to dissolve and, in a sense, reach the end of its cycle, humanity has had so much creativity and joyfully created the world that he's become aware of its transcendental nature. So we will see that it's as if all those, you see every person you see on the street, or every person you see, all your friends and whatever, all your Facebook friends and whatnot. Visualize all these points of existential attention, now all transcending to a clarity that we begin to become the foundation of a new reality. We become the origination of our future and our past from the presence of now. And so I believe it is said that in ancient mysticism, Indian mysticism, that the gods came down to consult the rishis and the mystics, the yogis. And that could playfully suggest that you as a human being have such an ability to observe. You're so free that you can observe and transcend the concept of freedom based on a certain form. And you will begin, all of this will give you an emptiness where you might feel in a moment, be like, okay, it feels very empty, and you suddenly see it's because there isn't that many thoughts going on. Your self-talk reduces in your deep contemplation because the fabric of existence shifts in your intention to very sincerely know, very honestly know. Cultivate a trust in life, and the journeyer will always be free. Much blessings.